Being able to train power is incredibly important for anybody who does train on a regular basis, but specifically for the combatives and law enforcement community so that they can get more explosive. We went through anything from learning how to land and load, getting into some low-level plyometrics, being able to concentrically explode off the ground and put force into the ground, and then getting dynamic with those movements in our lower body and upper body. My name is Aaron Duggar. I'm the Director of Performance at In Extremis Performance. We're going to be talking about how to implement power training into your programming. We're going to start with the progression. We always want to start with a great warm-up. We want to get you guys warmed up so where we can decrease the risk of injury and increase the ability to train at a higher level. So we'll start off with a nice easy warm-up, work through some skips, hops, some mobility work, and then we'll activate the body with a little bit more intense hops and skips to get you ready and fired up to be able to do what we're going to be doing here in the gym. We want to start off with what is power. Power is the expression of strength at speed. So if we look at the formula, power is force times velocity. Force is how much force we're putting into the ground or into a weight. Velocity is speed in a direction. We want to combine those two, and that's how we express power. So we want to be able to move some sort of weighted implement, anything from a barbell to our body weight, as fast and explosively as we can. So the progression we typically go through is we always want to start with landing and loading. We want to teach the body how to absorb force, how to put our body in a good position to reapply force when it's time to apply force back into the ground. And so we start off with landing and loading. It's simple things like learning how to snap down into our athletic or power position. Play with the power position, feel what feels best for you. Work into some snap downs, progress from double leg to single leg, and then we want to progress into adding a vertical component to it where we do a depth drop. So we drop off a box straight down, landing into that ideal power position. This is just helping us learn how to use our hips to absorb force, keeping our core tight and stacking our joints in the proper biomechanical way that we can appropriately apply force later on. The next phase is a plyometric. So we want to do some low-level plyometrics to start building some ankle stiffness and really start firing up those fast twitch muscles, those type 2 muscles. We do something simple like pogo hops or line hops. You can always start with the progression of 2 legs to 1 leg. I like to stay as low to the ground and be as quick as possible early on, and then add a height and vertical component to it, and then maybe add a little bit more of a distance component to it later on. All we're doing right there is trying to prep the ankles and prep our bodies and minds to be able to fire off quicker. The third phase of power progression is the concentric portion. So where we work from a dead stop and only work on applying force into the ground or into an implement. This is just rate of force development and power application. And so it's anything simple like box jumps, vertical jumps, med ball overhead throws from a dead stop. From here, we progress into the dynamic portion, and this is where we can start incorporating the upper body too. So we can get some counter movement jumps, some counter movement broad jumps, box jumps, counter movement overhead throws. We can also start working in the upper body plyometric, chest slams, some band pull downs that are explosive. We can also start getting in more of the shock method, which can tie into the dynamic method as well, which is where you add in the depth drops to vertical. So we have a little bit more stimulus of gravity, and then we have to push against that force that's acting against us. So when you start implementing power training into your programming, you want to put it at the very beginning, after the warm-up. Reason being, it acts in 2 ways. One, you have your phosphocreatine system, which is a very short, high-intensity energy system. So you want to use that whenever you're most fresh, not just your body being fresh, but also your mind being fresh, because power training is very mentally demanding on the central nervous system. The second thing it acts as a primer for your strength work. So if you take 2 people who are one's doing a 5x5 back squat protocol, the other one is doing the exact same protocol, but one is going to do a power exercise, let's say box jumps for example. The person who did box jumps will have a higher rate of force development than the one who did not do box jumps. It amplifies you, it primes your body, and helps you produce more force down the road in your strength exercises. So how much power work should you be doing? I'm one who errs on minimal effective dose. Anywhere from 10 to 15 reps is a good amount, and that's anywhere from 80% all the way down to body weight. Make quality over quantity. Make sure every rep is done with great intent and high intensity. Another key aspect of power training is making sure you're resting enough. You wouldn't hit a 1 rep at 90%, rest 30 seconds and try to do it again. Same concept applies to power and speed training. You want to be able to rest enough in between to where you can feel fresh and good and be able to repeat that effort every set and every rep. Some mistakes we see with power training is getting too specific in the movements and trying to replicate what you're doing exactly in the sport or on the mats. Just keep things as simple as possible and just train the metric of power. Push, pull, squat, hinge. Keep it simple, be intentional with it, and then make sure you're being explosive throughout every single movement.